South Hills, I'm so excited to share with you all the great things that God has been doing through our church this year. We've had over 48 people take the next step in their journey in their relationship with God and be a part of our Discover class, which is an opportunity for someone to get to know who we are as a church, what we believe in. The other thing that I'm excited to share with you is the amount of people who have stepped out in faith and have trusted God with their finances and started to tithe. And so this year so far, we've had 140 people step out in faith and believe God's word and believe God's promises. The next thing I want to share with you, we've had 267 people say yes to Jesus for the very first time in their life. And we are so excited to come alongside of them. And to all of our campuses, we've had 456 kids come to church for the very first time. That is unbelievable. God is moving through our church. We are seeing families come together, be bonded, grow in their marriages, seeing kids listen to the word of God for the very first time. And I just also want to take a moment. A few weeks ago, I asked you to step out in faith and join us in a movement that we were partnering with Jacaranda Housing. I said for every dollar that we gave towards Above and Beyond, that money would be dedicated towards helping Jacaranda Housing do what God has called it to do. We as a church raised $9,986 to support that movement. I want to say thank you, South Hills Church, for believing in God, for coming alongside of us, for having a generous heart, allowing yourself to make a difference in not only what we're doing here as a church, but what we're doing in communities.
Now, we are talking about some pretty heavy stuff. I mean, we're talking about depression. We're talking about some very heavy stuff. So one of the things that we do when things get really heavy is we like to escape reality, right? So we watch TV. We watch a lot of comedies to try to lighten up the mood. We try to watch something that's funny. So I actually looked up some of the top comedies in the past 30 years, and let's see if you agree with this list. And one of the shows was Friends. Are any Friends fans here? Yeah, okay. The next one was, what do we have next? Big Bang Theory, okay? Any Big Bang Theory fans? Okay, all right. 2.5 Men. No? Nobody likes 2.5 Men? Okay. Well, these shows were very long running. So a lot of people must have liked all of these shows because they had a really long run and they made a lot of people very happy, which is great. Now, you may boo me right now, but I didn't think any of these shows were good. I know, before you boo me, and some of you are like, Friends is the greatest thing ever. I didn't like it, and here's why. Not that they weren't funny, not that they didn't have talented actors or writers, but a little tip about me that people don't know, I cannot stand shows with laugh tracks. It bothers me. Every line, it's it drives me crazy and it distracts me. And I just can't. That's why I like The Office. The Office had no laugh tracks. It was just hilarious. But I just can't handle shows with, and then nowadays, it's the writing in these sitcoms is so lazy that it's sexual innuendo, laugh track. It's just so predictable and lazy, right? And the thing about laugh tracks is if everything is funny for me, if everything is supposedly funny, every other line is funny, then to me, nothing's funny. Because it's you're using it all the time. And for me, it's then it's nothing's funny. And it's not just comedies, guys. It's serious stuff, right? It's the news. Did you ever watch the news? It's okay, let's talk about a tragedy, right? We are here at the corner of whatever and whatever street, and there was gang violence, and 4 people were gunned down, including, Charles Johnson, who was a day away from retirement. It's just this tragic news, right? Back to you. Thank you for that. Well, don't go away, because when we come back, we're going to go to Coronado Island for a cat who can water ski. It's we're going by these big, huge emotional things. And then we get immune to the bad. Or it's they're showing buildings being destroyed in the Ukraine, And like this tragic, tragic stuff. And immediately after, thank you for that report. Don't go away. We're going to go to the fashion gala where Kourtney Kardashian is going to model. You don't want to miss it. The new dress she just came out. I don't care what Kourtney Kardashian's wearing and why is it on the news and why is it following some horrible tragedy. You see, what happens when that happens is, guys, we become immune to this stuff. It's just another bad thing. It's just another sad thing. But don't worry, because right after that, we're going to get something lighthearted, and then we'll just keep moving on. And we're literally immune to this stuff now. Because we're getting inundated with it when it's followed by something really light and easy. And guys, if we are being totally honest, you don't have to raise hands, but if we're being totally honest, we do this with people that are going through stuff in our lives too. You see, if you're the only one-stop shop for somebody, and they're going to you with all of their stuff, eventually you're going to become immune to their stuff, And it's like great that they're coming to you. It's great that they're talking to you. But if you're only going to one person, eventually that person is going to be tired of the same things. And that person's going to get fatigued by it. There's actually a term for this. And it's not that they don't love you, because they do love you. They just can't handle being the only person here, because eventually, after hearing the same thing over and over, they become immune to it. And again, there is actually a term for it. It's actually called compassion fatigue, okay? And it's basically the thing where it's like, I love you, but I just can't give you any more compassion. I feel like I'm the only one that you're talking to, and I just can't handle that. And then eventually that affects you, because now it's just like, now you're getting affected by it. And it's not like they could just snap out of it, and it's not that they don't need help. Here's the heartbreaking reality, okay? If you're fatigued by someone's constant need for compassion, it doesn't mean that they still don't need compassion, okay? So if you're getting fatigued by that and you're like, man, this is getting draining, it doesn't mean if you just stop talking about it that they don't need that compassion. They still do. Maybe you stopped talking about it, but they still have a need for that. And a lot of us really don't like that inconvenient reality. This happens to a lot of people, not just with mental illness. This actually happens to a lot of people that are caregivers for a family member or a friend. Now, if you're the only one that's doing everything, it's not that you don't love that person. You absolutely do. That's why you're the only one, right? But eventually, if you're the only one doing everything, you're going to get fatigued by it. And it's going to get old real quick. And you're just going to be like, can't you just get better? Like, please, instead of like including other people in it, can't you just hurry and get better so we can move on? Because you're fatigued by it. And you're just, when will this ever get better? And again, thing to remember is, even if we stop talking about it, just being silent doesn't make the issues go away. They're still there. They're still there. Now, here is why we can't just snap out of it. Because that's the one thing we want, right? Snap out of it, get better, get up, get better. Here's why. Systematic problems require systematic solutions, okay? And that's hard for a society that's obsessed with overnight miracle cures. Systematic problems require systematic solutions, okay? So, when it comes to depression, there is no singular cause. Now, what does that mean? That means that there's no singular simple solution as well. Like we talked about last week, there's all sorts of severities to this, okay? So a lot of times we like to play psychiatrist, or we like to play the doctor in the situation, right? So somebody's coming to you and they've got something going on. You're like, oh man, they're suffering. They're a narcissist. Well, you're not a doctor. You don't know that. Well, they're dual personality. I know it. Well, what possible training do you have? Well, I saw it on a TV show, a documentary one time. This is what it is. It's like you want to hurry up and diagnose it so that you could hurry up and fix it, right? Well, this is what they need to do. They need to do this because my cousin Larry did that and it worked for him real well. Well, you don't even know what the problem is. You're diagnosing it and you're trying to cure it because you want to hurry up and move on. You're like, I've already heard the same story. Let's move on. So you're a narcissist, and I saw a documentary on narcissism, so you need to do this, and that's how you'll get fixed. So then we can move on and have fun. It's like, well, it doesn't work that way. You don't know. And everybody's different. Everybody's brain chemistry is different. You don't know what's going on in their life. Now, here's what we do know about depression. And you don't have to write this down right now because we're going to go over it more in detail as we close. But depression is the result of deficiencies in three basic categories. So if you want to label it down into three basic categories, here they are. There's nature, okay? That's your biology and brain chemistry. There's nurture. There's patterns and parenting, upbringing. And then there's neighborhood, who surrounds you and what you have access to. And we're going to unpack these a little bit more into detail. But first, before we do that, we're going to dive into a story in the Old Testament. And we're going to talk about Elijah. And Elijah was a prophet in the Old Testament. And if you're wondering what a prophet is, it's simply just God speaking through this person, this human being. God Almighty is speaking through a human being, and that human being is giving a message to God's people. Now, in this case of Elijah, he actually predicts there's going to be a drought in the land. And then that drought actually happens. And then he has a contest on top of a mountain to see whose God could end the drought, right? And what he does is he wins, and he literally gets fire from heaven and destroys all the false gods and false prophets. Okay, this guy is super duper connected to God. Now, let me ask you a question before I move on. Have you ever felt guilty as a Christian? And if you're watching online, you can ask, as a Christian, have you ever felt guilty for feeling depressed? I mean, think about this for a second, right? I go to church, I tithe, I serve, I've even given to the building, I do all these things for church. I have been baptized. I've even led someone to Christ. That's how connected to God I am. I pray every day. I read the Bible every day. I'm in Bible studies. I even help baptize somebody. I am that connected to God. That's how good I am with God. Why do I feel depressed then? Is it not working? Should I hide it? Because I do all these things at church, maybe I should just hide it and pretend like I'm good, because somebody with all this spiritual background couldn't possibly be depressed, right? Think about that for a second. Now, going back to Elijah, God literally uses them to destroy false prophets and false gods, bring fire from the heavens, and yet even though he was that connected to God, he still had these depressive thoughts. What happens is an evil queen threatens him. He freaks out. He takes off and hides. And then when he's hiding, he's contemplating these suicidal thoughts. Okay? Here we're going to pick it up in 1 Kings 19, 3-4. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. And when he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there. And while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, he came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Sounds a lot like depression. Now, what does God say to him? How does God respond? What spiritual things does God tell him when, again, this is his prophet, this is his guy, and he's saying, just take my life, I am done. How does God respond? Does he say, you need to pray more, Elijah? I'm not letting you play with fire anymore. You're in trouble, you're in timeout, right? Does he say you need to read scripture? Does it say you need to have more faith? You need a bumper sticker that says, not today, Satan. You need a wristband that says WWJD. Like, what does he tell him that he has to do, right? What's his thing? It's super spiritual. Are you guys ready for this super spiritual response that God gives him? God speaks through an angel to Elijah, and here's the major spiritual response when Elijah says, I want my life to end. And here's what he says. 1 Kings 19:5, speaking through an angel. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. And all at once, an angel touched him and said, what? Get up and eat. We're getting hardcore doctrine here, guys. I mean, this is deep stuff, right? I don't go to seminary to get that thing. Right. Get up and eat. Now, like we talked about last week with Eli, it was different because Eli was just to go eat something and go away. That's not what he's doing here. He's saying, get up and eat. Eat something, not necessarily the most spiritual thing you would think of, but maybe you might need to broaden your mind of what actually is spiritual. When we think this has got to be this, but what if this advice is you got to also take care of your physical body as well? Okay. Now this advice, get up and eat, is very simple. Your brain needs fuel. It needs nutrients. You're not thinking straight right now, Elijah. You need to get up and you need to eat something. Now. Here's what's interesting. An angel is speaking on God's behalf and suggests that he solve what feels like more of a spiritual or emotional problem by doubling down and saying you got to take care of your physical body as well. It is interesting, but here's why. Some spiritual or emotional breakthroughs require us first to address our physical issues. So Elijah is praying for a spiritual breakthrough, and what's God say? Have breakfast. Why don't you have breakfast first, and then we'll talk. Right now, you're not mentally right to have a conversation with me right now. You need to fuel your body, you know? And that's what we just don't like that, right? We don't like those responses. It's got to be more spiritual. You're God, I'm a prophet. Give me something spiritual, not have breakfast. I want something hardcore. God, do something about my constant fatigue, right? We ask him that a lot. He's like, great, take care of your body as well, because we're whole beings. We'll get into that. God, help me with my anger issues. I will. Maybe you should look at how much alcohol you're intaking or how much sugary foods you're having. Maybe look at some of the stuff that you're putting in your body. God, help me with my stress level. I will. Are you getting maybe 30 minutes of exercise at least 3 times a week? It's good for your body, right? God, help me with my relational dysfunction. I will. Maybe you're in a situation or a home where you're being verbally abused, and maybe you need to exit that situation for you and for maybe your children. God, help me so I'm not so depressed that I can't even get out of bed. I will. Maybe start by seeing a psychiatrist or a counselor or a therapist, because your brain chemistry needs a little bit leveling out, you know? Now, by the way, the inverse is also true. Now, some physical breakthroughs require you to first address spiritual or emotional issues as well. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, because the inverse is true. So let's say, for example, you're like, God, I need rest. I cannot sleep. I need rest. And some of us kind of want like God to like have a NyQuil bottle with a parachute and kind of just comes around and, oh, okay, good, I'm good. You know, like I need to sleep. I need to rest. But maybe there's something going on inside of you that you're not addressing spiritually. Maybe it could be a million things, but maybe it's about a forgiveness issue. Thinking about this person's name, you can't even fall asleep. Because it's like, I've got maybe a forgiveness issue, because when that name pops up, it conjures up so much emotion in me that I can't physically even relax to fall asleep. Maybe it could be that. It could be a lot of things. But the bottom line is that you got to really look at your spiritual life as well to help take care of your physical. We're all connected beings. Now you might think, well, how are those connected? Sometimes it's more convenient to compartmentalize your life than to confront some shadowy parts of it. And so it's just easy to just, I'll compartmentalize it and that's how I'll move on. But the ancient Jews believed that the different dimensions of life aren't isolated, they're actually integrated. Now here's what this means. Depression is a whole person affliction. It's the result of nature, nurture, and neighborhood. And healing requires a whole person approach. Okay, we're gonna get into this. So once you've wrapped your head around this reality, you're going to see how brilliant the angel's instructions are. Because Eli was great spiritually. He was connected with God. He's a prophet. He was fantastic spiritually, but he wasn't great physically. And the angel had great advice for him here and speaking for God. Now, 1 Kings 19:6, it says this. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals in a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, "Get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you." Now, did you catch that? He needed to charge up. He didn't get one night's sleep. He needed to get several nights' sleep. He didn't have one good, healthy meal. He needed to have several good, healthy meals. Why? Because it's a process, okay? So physical restoration is a process. And also is physical deterioration. You might want to remember that. Physical restoration is a process, and so is physical deterioration. It's all a process. Now, some of us know what the process needs to be, guys. We just don't want to do it. Straight up. Let me give you an example of this. What I am teaching you about us being whole people, we're physical, spiritual people, us being whole people. Any pastor who's been to seminary, who's had any kind of training, could teach you what I'm teaching you right now. They could break down this passage and they could teach you this, right? Anybody who's actually studied this. Of course, we're whole beings, right? We're spiritual, we're physical, we're full beings. They could teach you that. Any pastor could. Now, I'm going to throw myself on the coals here, okay? If that's the case, then why are so many pastors out of shape? Think about this for a second. I mean, we get so enamored with pastors and all that we know biblically, right? We're like, wow, pastor so-and-so knows the Bible like the back of his or her hand, and they're amazing. And they've gone and they've done all these things, and they've got all these followers on Instagram and podcasts and books, and they've done millions, and they're amazing. They're the spiritual figure of everything, but they're totally out of shape. So there's some things that they're actually not good at because they might be good spiritually, but they're not good physically. And we're designed to be whole beings, but we put these people up on a pedestal, right? I was convicted, guys. I went to a physical last month, and the doctor said, your cholesterol's a little high. I'm like, what's cholesterol now? What's that? And she goes, yeah. And she goes, you needed to cut down on your red meat. And I was like, oh, well, I'll cut down on some steaks, but I'll still have burgers. Burgers are red meat too. No! They heard me in the lobby. Is somebody okay in there? No, he's grabbing my ankle and he won't let go. Like, please, no, I need burgers. It's like, I got to take care of my, I did. I've been cutting down on my red meat and sodas and things like that. I actually lost 12 pounds, right? Just getting a little bit more healthy, right? Because if I'm going to teach this stuff, I got to be willing to look at my own life. Because again, we're not just spiritual beings, we're physical beings as well. So when you're looking at people to look up to, be careful that you don't idolize people, because we all need to work on stuff. Okay? So make sure you're looking at that. We're holistic beings. Now, in the case of Elijah, God provided the path, but Elijah still had to walk it. Okay? And then when it comes to holistic health, most of us aren't lacking the right information. We're lacking consistent application. We know what to do. We're just not doing it. Okay? So we're not lacking information. We got the information. We're lacking the application. Now, 1 Kings 19:8 says, so he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. So think about this in categories: nature, nurture, and neighborhood. Now, here's how it relates to what Elijah told God to do for his depression. He eats, sleeps, and hikes. So that's nature and biological, right? He pulls him out of his normal routine, and the routine that was not working for him whatsoever. And he has him do these habits over and over and over, 40 days and 40 nights, actually. And that's nurture. He's doing patterns. And then God tells him in the very next section of Scripture, and we're not going to get into that today, but you also need to tell other people. You need to face your issues by dealing face-to-face with others. And we're going to get him now. Elisha plays a part in all of that as well. That's really more in the next scriptures. But that's neighborhood, people he surrounds himself with. Now, one thing I love about this story, guys, is God never demeans him. Notice that? He never tells him to hurry up and get better. So think about this. If God were a person, he'd go, dude, I made you a prophet. I let you play with fire from the heavens, and you're going to do this? Do you know how bad that makes me look? I mean, I put you there, and now I look like an idiot because you're doing all this depressive stuff. You're supposed to be perfect. That makes me look bad. God doesn't do that at all. He meets him exactly where he's at, and he never tells him, you need to hurry and get better. He doesn't do that. The only people that do that are actual humans. God doesn't do that. God's never like, you hurry, man, what? I already gave you this, hurry up. He doesn't do that. He's right there with them, Now, depression develops slowly, but it also dissipates much in the same way. Something does take time to tunnel out of it. It's not an immediate process. It requires perseverance. Look what the Bible says in the New Testament, Hebrews 10:36. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. So a great question here is, what do I need to do to persist at? And what do I need to address? Now, maybe you're watching this online or you're here and you're like, man, I'm stuck doing the bare minimum and I'm exhausted every day. And if that's you, there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is our brains are wired to survive. So if I were to throw a ball or a rock at you, your first reaction would be like this. Your brain would say, I've got to protect myself. Or if you're gonna get into a car accident, there's a car right there, your brain automatically tells your leg or your foot, go step on the brakes. So it's automatically, we're geared to, your brain's wired to, I go into survival mode. Well, when we're talking about mental depression, what this is your brain gets into survival mode, and so you're doing the bare minimum just to get through the day, right? because I'm in survival mode right now. So I don't have any energy to do the things that I enjoy doing or that I would love to do or that I would love to do with other people. I'm in survival mode right now, and I just got to do whatever I could do just to get through that day. But that's not the life God has for you. He's got so much more for you, but we get so used to, I'm just going to do the bare minimum because I just need to survive. I just need to get through today, you know? Now, again, the point of this message is to attempt to better understand you or someone you know when it comes to depression, just to kind of help guide them through that journey. And again, part of it is getting others around you so you're not the only one on your own, or you're not only depending on one person. So, here's a little checklist that we do, and this is something that we're going to have here. You don't have to write it all down, but you can take a picture of it, because this is going to help you or someone you know to identify some depressive things in their life that they really need to address to help them out. Now, first, there's nature. There's your biology and your brain chemistry. Now, what sort of food are you eating? How much of it is healthy? How much are you moving your body? How much sunshine are you getting? And how much sleep are you getting? Now, you might be thinking, so hold on a second, Pastor. So you want me to eat like some carrot sticks and celery sticks and walk a couple minutes and then I'm all good? Well, you're better. I have seen people after they work out literally be in a different mental headspace after they finished working out. I've seen that happen. Okay, I've done that myself, where if I'm going through something, I'll take a long walk, and I have been actually since I talked to the doctor, and a little bit before that, I take a walk for over 2 miles a day for 6 days, 6 times a week, right? So it's just to kind of get my mind going better. So yeah, it actually does. Study after study will show you what you put in your body and how you exercise actually affects how you think. Okay, I mean the inverse again is true. I've also had a triple cheeseburger from Tommy chili cheese fries. I didn't feel great. I really didn't. I didn't feel good at all. I sluggish and tired. So what you put in your body is a big deal. The next is nurture. So parents and patterns. And is there trauma in your childhood you've not fully addressed? What have you been taught to value? What behaviors have you picked up that spiral you? And what are your triggers? Now, some of you are in denial and will say, it's so weird, Pastor, but I don't have any triggers. It's like crazy. Nothing triggers me. I was always happy. It's crazy. I don't know. It's weird. I know, but I'm always happy. I don't have any triggers. If that's you, ask whoever you're living with and they will tell you your triggers, okay? I've got a list and I'm ready whenever you are, okay? Okay, and then the last one is neighborhood. Who's surrounding you and what you have access to. So what meaningful work are you constantly contributing to? Who do you spend time with and what's their overall effect on you? What boundaries do you have on your time, technology, energy, and activities? And do the environments you frequent build or drain your energy? Now, a good question for all of us is, what do you or someone you know what do they need to explore? Do they need nature? Do they need nurture? Do they need neighborhood? What do they need to explore? Now, much like the story in the situation with Elijah, there's biological factors in place for depression for all of us, okay? And it's triggered by overwhelming circumstances. So let me give you, again, an example of this. So let's say I don't really feel like I'm depressed. I feel really good, and you very well be really good. You're like, I feel great. I'm doing great. Everything's great. Life is great. And then all of a sudden, there's an illness in the family. And then your whole life changes. And it's going to trigger you into things that you didn't know you had inside of you, and it's going to come out in a very depressive way. Or let's say the marriage is going great, and we're happy, we take walks every Saturday, and then all of a sudden there's an issue in the marriage, and the marriage is not so great, and then that will cause you a depression. What that does is it triggers all of these insecurities, and all of this baggage, and all of this stuff you've had ever since you were little, and it's all going to come out in a very big, major depressive way. So again, you might have thought you were doing good, but you were really good at hiding it, and then when these circumstances come up, it triggers all of this stuff, and it could put you in a tailspin. And that could be the case for a lot of things like that. Now, finances, your own health, it's all there, but when this comes up, this triggers all of this stuff. Now, people have asked me before, they say, what is the hardest part about being a pastor? And I always tell them, it's not even close. It's not even close for me. Is it the counseling? No, that gets pretty intense. And it's hard to watch people going through some tough stuff. I'm not a robot. I have emotions and feelings. It's hard. But that's not the hardest part because I know we're doing this together. Is it the hospital visits? No, I know they're going to be, God's taking care of them, and I'm going to be there to support them and love them. But I can't save them, and we're all terminal. So I'm going to be there best I can for them. That's hard. Emotionally, it's hard, but it's not the hardest. Is it building campaigns or the building or things like that? Those are stressful and hard, yeah, but it's not the hardest. By far, the hardest part about being a pastor is when you see somebody coming to church because life is tough and they get plugged in and they get really involved because life's hard, whether it's got family, financial, health, whatever it is, and maybe something's wrong with their kid, or there's emotional issues, or there's physical issues, and they come to church and they go, just pray for me. My family's going through hard things, or I'm going through hard things. Pray for me. And then we do, and then they get involved, and then they get plugged in, and they're really starting to become dependent on God. They're really trusting God, right? And then all of a sudden, the marriage gets better, the finances get better, the health gets better, and then it's like, hey, I haven't seen you. Oh, we've been real busy, but we're good now, and I'll see you at Easter. That's the hardest part, I'm telling you, by far, about being a pastor, is when you're in it with them, and then you think, we're good now, so I don't really need that, but I'll be back if I do. Because guys, whether we want to admit it or not, those things are still there to trigger you into a deep depression. You really think that your health is always going to be good? Are you serious? No, there's going to be health issues again. You really think your finances are going to be good? Well, with inflation and gas being $10,000 a gallon, no. That's going to end, right? Do you really think that marriage is always going to be perfect? No, because those issues are still there. It's not that they went away. I mean, all of these things are still there. And now you're just kind of covering it, but the second there's an earthquake, it's going to trigger it back up. And it's like, man, I know that I'm not going to see this person again for a while until things are not good. That's by far the hardest part, because all those triggers are in line for a deep depression. Now, there are things that are out of our control, but there's also things that are totally within our control. Now, maybe it's just talking to somebody about it or seeing a psychiatrist. Maybe it's deciding to limit your access to foods or alter your crazy schedule. Or maybe you're thinking that you're not strong enough to do this. Maybe you're thinking, this is way too hard. I can't do this. And my simple answer is, you can't. You're right. You need other people. You can't do it on your own. It's impossible. We need other people to help us get through this. It's going to take a whole person approach to take that next step. Now, why will it take a whole person approach? Because how you're living is the largest determiner of how you're feeling. That's why it'll take a whole person approach. How you're living spiritually and physically is going to take a whole person approach. It's going to require you to. Now, somebody might say, well, I eat right and all the other stuff. Well, again, you might need to talk to somebody, see a professional. And some of you might be thinking, cool, I'll just exercise and then I'm all good. As soon as I get my six-pack and I'm worked out and I'm all good, then I'll be great. Then I'll be perfect. I got an amen, right? So I think we're good. I think we'll be fine. All I got to do is get that. Now, here's the thing. If that's true, if all you do is get your physical stuff set up and you're good, if that's true, then the athlete should never be depressed, correct? The greatest Olympian in the history of the Olympics, Michael Phelps, who has got all these medals, right? If you're ever wondering what Pastor James looks like with his shirt off, hey-o. He had this to say, okay? He had this to say: after every Olympics, I fell into a major depression. In a 2018 interview, Michael Phelps admitted to using self-medicated drugs, and he's also contemplated suicide. Running back and Heisman Trophy winner, NFL running back and Heisman Trophy winner, Ricky Williams said this, quote, "I was 23, a millionaire, and had everything, yet I was never happy in my life," he said in an interview with ADAA, which is the Anxiety and Depression Association of America. He said, "I felt extremely isolated from friends and family because I couldn't explain to them what I was feeling. I had no idea what was wrong with me." And then just recently, Naomi Osaka drops out of the French Open, and she's been dealing with depression since 2018. And she said, quote, "It's kind of scary. It's kind of a scary first step to take, but I think it could be helpful to everyone in some shape or form, and especially so to a larger section of people. It doesn't mean you're broken." Now, these are public figures with a whole lot more to lose than you and I, because they've got the media looking after them. They've got sponsors they got to deal with. They've got opinions from social media that they've got to deal with. So they've got a whole lot more to lose than we do. But I guarantee you this, none of them regret coming out and open with what they were dealing with, because it's healthy. You need to talk to people about it. And one person can't handle it all. You need to be open with other people, you know? Now, I know there's parts of us that might be thinking, I just want this to go away so bad. Why can't I just feel better? When is this ever going to get better? Listen, I get it. I want God to zap me and make me better. God, if you're real, zap me and take away all this stuff so I can get better. I get that. I get it, right? I understand it. I don't have depression or clinical depression. I do have anxiety, and I'm in medication for it. And I've thought that before. I don't want to feel this way. How do I get rid of this? And here's the reality for me, and it might be the reality for you. It is the reality for you. It could be just a day-to-day way to keep darkness from controlling your life. That might just be your life's work. Just a day-to-day thing that today, I just want to keep darkness from controlling my life. I need to trust God, and I need to allow people in. And it just might be a day-to-day thing. Now, here's the situation for all of us, and for you that maybe you're watching this and you're going through depression yourself, okay? You will never in this lifetime fully defeat depression. I'm sorry, I wish I could tell you that you could. I really do. But you're never gonna fully defeat depression. But with the help of God and with the help of people surrounding you, you can keep depression from defeating you, okay? You can. You can. And it just might say, I'm just gonna do my best today to trust God and allow other people in. I'm gonna do it today. And it's gonna be a daily thing that I do, okay? Now, if you're going into a dark place, like these famous athletes, tell somebody about it. And if you're the recipient of being the one-stop shop of that person going to you with all their stuff, know this, and I wanna make this super clear, you can't fix them. You can't, okay? You could do your best to love them, but you could also do your best to encourage them to get more help, because you by yourself can't do it all. You can't. You need to let yourself off the hook with that. You can't do it all. And you got to allow let them know. Let's because it's going to overwhelm you. So let's encourage this person to get some more help. Talk to a professional. Talk to a therapist. Get into a support group. That's why we have this church family here. We're a very non-judgy place, man. Wherever you came from, whatever you're at, you're welcome here. It's okay. We could talk about things. We could be honest about things. But you need to get that community. If that's you, please write that down on your card. Let us know about it. Let me know about it. You don't have to pretend here. It's okay. But please don't try to be the one-stop shop for somebody, okay? Because you're not going to be able to handle it. And you're just going to be, at some point, you're going to break and you're going to go, I just can't deal with it anymore. And again, like we talked about, that doesn't mean that person still doesn't need that compassion. They still need it. So that's why you get encouraged to talk to and open up to more people. And we're going to do that here in our church family. Let's pray.